Hi and welcome back to my channel. I'm Katie and today I have a cold, which is why I look and sound a little bit messed up. So we are just going to kindly ignore that for me today. Anyway, today's video is about something that I find so interesting, and that is why we have romanticized toxic relationships so much. So this is things like being super jealous and clingy and possessive and controlling and mean to each other. Like yelling and fighting and breaking up and then making up again. I think that this has always kind of been like a thing, but over recent years, I swear it's gotten so much worse to the point where it's like people seem to believe that the best relationships are the ones where you hate each other. Anyway, I'm not gonna lie, this is something I do. I find healthy relationships dull. And as we all know, when there's something wrong with me, I love to figure out what's going on. So here's why I think we're so obsessed with romanticizing toxic relationships. I think that the main one, and this is kind of where everything else stems from, is that a lot of these toxic behaviors kind of have romantic undertones, if that makes sense. Basically, we see these behaviors as this person demonstrating how much they love you. You're jealous because you love me so much and you don't want to share me. You're controlling because you love me so much and you just want what's best for me. You're obsessive and creepy and read my texts and throw a tantrum if I don't reply within 5 minutes because you are so in love with me. And isn't that so sweet that you love me so much that it makes you completely unhinged? I honestly think that this one might be something to do with low self-esteem and need someone to love you in this super intense way to kind of prove to yourself that you deserve someone who loves you this much, if that makes sense. The next reason that I think we romanticize toxic relations so much is the media. Like, you look at 99.999% of movies and TV shows and there is some sort of toxic relationship going on there. Like right back all the way to Shakespeare up to now with like Twilight and 50 Shades of Grey. Everything is just toxic relationships. I guess that's just because they kind of have to be in order for there to be some sort of plot. But the way that we see these relationships in movies and TV shows is obviously not a realistic portrayal of what it's actually like to be in a toxic relationship. Because for one thing, we always see a happy ending, like a really happy, good, positive resolution, where both people end up forgiving each other for everything and they're in love and they're happy and there's no bitterness or negative consequences whatsoever. Plus half the time they say things like, oh, we've come out of this so much stronger and I'm so glad that we went through all of that because it's made us better as a couple. Which I feel like normalizes the idea that relationships need to be kind of screwed up in order for you to get to a point where you can be happy. And this is probably true for normal kind of relationship conflict that you'd expect in any kind of relationship, but for the kind of stuff that we're talking about, that's silly. Also, the actual forgiving part and the making up is always some super romantic apology with like this massive grand gesture and everyone is happy and it just makes it all seem so nice, when in reality no one's actually going to be throwing pebbles at your house in the middle of the night after spending weeks being deeply introspective and healing themselves to a point where they're good enough. Like, no, usually it's just someone says, sorry, lol, won't happen again. And then it does. It does. Instead of romanticizing toxic relationships, why don't we romanticize going and subscribing to my channel right now if you haven't already? And also, let's romanticize liking the video. The button's right there. And I would really like it. Thank you so much for doing that. Also, a lot of the time you have this whole like passionate, forbidden kind of vibe that makes toxic relationships seem so much sexier just because of this. Especially in tropes like enemies to lovers, where it is basically two people hate each other, but they are so intensely attracted to each other that this just overcomes all of that. And then speaking of attraction, when we see these relationships in movies, obviously the actors are hot, which is going to automatically make the relationship seem 10 times hotter than it actually is. But then you also have stuff on the internet about how toxic people are so much hotter than regular people. They say things like, fucked up guys give the best head. Toxic girls are freakier in bed. It's just seen as though having all of these issues makes you sexier and also more fun to have sex with, which I guess could be true. To be honest, I'm going to find out if this is true or not. I've just added this to the list of things that I will find some way to ethically study. But for now, one thing I do know is that a lot of the traits associated with people who are toxic in relationships are also associated with not enjoying sex when you're having it. So it could be that these people are maybe really good at sex, but they're having a bad time during it. So I don't know if it ends up being worth it or not. Anyway, I'll find out what's going on here and I'll get back to you eventually, maybe in several years. But by the way, you can definitely be sexy and good at sex and also not toxic towards your partner, just as a side note. That is something that people are capable of doing. Also, I do think that there's this kind of idea that if you and your relationship aren't toxic toxic, then you're boring in some way. And this is fed into so much by the media. And my theory for why this is basically that we want complexity from characters and also from real people. In movies, in order to see this complexity overtly, we need to see it from their behaviours. Their behaviour needs to demonstrate to us that they have more than one side. They need some sort of ulterior motive, otherwise they come across as this one-dimensional, perfect partner with nothing going on in their head, who's just there doing perfect, healthy relationship stuff, which obviously in terms of a storyline is quite boring. But in real life, when you actually know people, they have this complexity just by virtue of being a person with layers. But when they are hypothetical, such as in movies, TV shows, and also just when we are romanticizing some hypothetical person inside of our head, whether they're a real person or a made-up person, there generally aren't these layers there unless we find a way to put them there. And it seems like our choice of how we've added this complexity is by romanticizing kind of negative behaviors so that they're not one-dimensional, perfect people who always act in a good way. And then in movies you have tropes like the bad boy. I'm sure there's probably equivalents for other genders, but the bad boy is generally the one that we see all the time. I think with this, there's this kind of I can fix him mentality, which you see online so much. There's something so appealing to people about wanting to change or fix a person that they're in a relationship with when no one else has been able to. It's like being the only person that this other person sees as worthy enough of changing for. Again, maybe this comes back to like self-esteem, but also it could be some sort of narcissism, hero complex thing where you don't actually care about this person. It just makes you feel special and talented to be the only person capable of fixing them. So it's basically romanticizing this toxic dynamic of the partner who treats everyone like shit and the savior who comes along and shows them the error of their ways. I don't think this happens very often in real life. People need to change because they want to, not because they're with a partner who is trying to make them change. One day I might do a video actually on what happens when you try to change your partner in relationships. I'll give you a hint now though, it's not good for anyone in the relationship. So I suppose to summarize most of this, I think we romanticize toxic relationships because they seem less boring. Our little brains love stimulation. They love to be entertained. We like things to be happening, and we also love to think of our lives like movies, where we need characters to act a bit fucked up in order to move the plot along. But the truth is that there are already enough fucked up things happening in most people's lives that the plot is moving along anyway, and you don't need to add an extra unnecessary relationship into that to make you feel worse for the sake of adding a little bit of drama. I don't think it's worth it. Anyway, I think that's the end of the video. I'm gonna make a video soon about why we stay in toxic relationships once we're already in them, which is going to have some fun facts that I've learned studying relationship psychology and also behavioral psychology, and also pretty much every other type of psychology kind of talks about it. So go down below right now and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss that. And if you're watching this after I've posted this, I will put the link to that somewhere here so you can watch it right now. I just remember that I was going to talk about something here about how so much of the toxic relationship stereotypes are super gendered, because I feel like that probably has some sort of relevance to something. It just definitely feels like something worth talking about. So I guess I'm just gonna have to make part 2, maybe. Who knows? I could always keep talking. Also, I've been really enjoying doing these, I don't really know what to call them, like dating commentary videos, maybe? Anyway, they've been fun. I really like the last one I did talking about why Gen Z doesn't have sex anymore. If you haven't seen that one, like I said, I really like it. I'll also put the links to another couple of like dating commentary videos that I've done. These are my favorite kind of videos to film, I think. And that might just be because this is literally what I study and what I care about. So I do hope other people kind of like watching them and listening to me talk about these things as well. Okay, anyway, that's it. Good night and goodbye, and please leave a comment, and please like the video, and please subscribe to my channel. Okay, love you, bye.